Hi, I'm Susan Moody, and welcome to this episode of Understanding Viruses. So we hear a lot in the news about viruses, but what are they? How do they spread? Why are some so deadly? Well, this is an informational piece. If you have a real concern, please contact your primary care physician. But let's look at what is a virus. So viruses are basically genetic material packed in an element that invades host cells. And viruses are super small. So for example, if this is a cell in your body, red blood cell, a virus is actually 1,000 times smaller than the cell. And the way that a virus invades and infects a human cell is a couple of ways. One, the cell, if this is a healthy cell, there's a receptor piece on the cell that the virus will utilize, like a docking. So if the healthy cell comes in contact, if the virus comes in contact with a healthy cell, it docks and then injects its genetic material into the cell. The second way a virus can invade a human cell is it basically tries to come right to the cell and get absorbed. Think of like a piece of Jell-O absorbing a piece of fruit. It just invades into the cell. Now what happens within the cell, that virus unpacks itself. It reassembles inside the cell. Now if it's an active infection, so every virus will do this. Every virus has a lytic cycle. And what that means, it's an active infection. And when that healthy cell gets invaded by the virus, now it replicates, it duplicates, and when that is ripened, it explodes. So now instead of your one virus, you have 100 or 100,000, depending on the virus. That's a lytic stage. All viruses do that. Now, some viruses also have a lysogenic cycle. What does that mean? That means the virus unpacks its DNA into the human cell and it goes dormant. It literally splices its DNA into the DNA of the cell. Now, when that cell duplicates itself, that DNA material of the virus continues on dormant. Some examples of viruses that do that are herpes, the chickenpox, which goes into shingles later in life. They all go dormant, and then when the immune system is stressed or that virus gets stimulated, now it goes into the lytic stage where now it's an active infection, it's breaking the cells, and it's making the host sick. How does it do that? Well, there's two types of viruses. One virus, the DNA virus, and the RNA virus. That simply divides the type of virus and how it duplicates. The DNA viruses have, just like in humans, we have this is our DNA model, and it replicates the information. If it is a DNA virus, if I were to unpack that, lay it out, it's going to be more like a zipper. Each side of the DNA has an RNA and an RNA which join then together to be the DNA. If I unpack the virus genetic material, just like in humans, a baby's made with a male side of the DNA and a female, and they join. And when that DNA joins itself, it fits exactly, and just like in the zipper, it has a specific code that fits together, and it's self-correcting. So a virus that is a DNA virus has very little change. easy to make vaccines for because the virus doesn't mutate as easily as the RNA viruses. The RNA viruses, like Ebola, COVID, SARS, when the genetic material unpacks itself, the two DNA strands separate into RNA, and now it doesn't care if the two sides are exactly the same. It will reattach, and now this DNA is a brand new strain. It can be a totally different combination of genetic material, and it can take, for example, animal and human material, combine it, which is how we get monkeypox or the avian flu, because it has now jumped hosts. Typically, every virus creates itself to be specific to a host cell. If a virus doesn't match the host cell, if it's not targeted genetically to the host cell, it can invade and is basically harmless to the host. So how does a virus spread? So when the human, in this case, me, gets a virus, and the virus now invades my system, it unpacks itself, it replicates, and when I have a cold, the bodily fluids, the cough, the sneeze, now this virus has infected my cells, and viral shed will happen on the hands, and when I cough and sneeze, all these viruses now come out into the world and infect other people. What's really interesting and actually good news, not that COVID-19 is good news at all, but COVID-19, when it erupts from the host cell, takes part of that protein and it covers it like a cloaking device. However, the protein is stolen from the host cell, and in the case of COVID-19, it can get washed off quite easily. Soap and water. So the good news with COVID-19 is that envelope that protects it, that allows it to enter another host, if you wash, hand washing, surface washing, you can actually strip the COVID-19 virus of that protective protein coating. You reveal it to the immune system, and now the immune system can attack it, and so hand washing is vital for that. What's really interesting, if there's anything interesting about how viruses spread and what makes some viruses so deadly, is actually how it replicates in the host. If it's a massively fast replication, a lot of cells are being destroyed in the process, how fast it spreads, if the immune system can detect it, if that virus goes under the immune system radar, then the virus can become more deadly. What happens with mutations is our immune system, when a virus hits us, our adaptive immune system now creates T cells and B cells, and it knows exactly that genetic DNA and it has a specific soldier to fight that invader. The more that the body can identify, the easier it is to fight the invader. So like viruses sometimes will help a body's immune system identify another. But of all the known viruses, millions and millions, only 10% of the recorded viruses actually affect humans. What else do viruses affect? Animals, plants, bacteria, fungus, mold, insects, other mammals, fish, reptiles. So anything that's living, there's a virus that has specifically DNA coded to that particular host cell. What's kind of fun, when I was getting ready for this, here in Michigan, The jackalope is an animal of mythic proportions, right? So never does a rabbit breed with an antelope. But back in the 1930s, Richard Shope, who was a cancer research scientist, was told that some hunters had actually bagged some rabbits that had horns. He went to investigate. What he found was the papillomavirus in this particular rabbit, and rabbits would create a horn-like tumor off it. So the Shope papillomavirus is actually one of the viruses, because he was interested in some of the viruses that cause cancer. It is one of those, and it is related to warts. So it takes the keratin of the surface and creates these tumors, these horny growths. So does fact follow fiction, or did fiction follow fact? Well, in this case, fiction did follow fact, because there's recorded Shope papillomaviruses in rabbits way back to the 1730s, scientific drawings of that. But mammals are not the only ones. So there's insects, and there is these wonderful parasitic wasps. Now, parasitic wasps in general don't use viruses, and parasitic wasps take care of our garden. It will help. The benefits to the garden are it takes care of aphids. They have to have a list. So, aphids, cabbage worms, cornworms, cucumber beetles, cutworms, gypsy moth and tent caterpillars, Japanese beetles, scale, whiteflies. So parasitic wasps, there's about 200 of them, and they are so beneficial to the garden. But there's one in particular that targets ladybugs, and it uses a virus to do so. It is the Decampus Coxanea Paralysis virus. And what this wasp does is it injects an egg into the ladybug. For 20 days, that ladybug, so it's taken over the body, but not the brain. And the ladybug walks around, it continues to eat, hydrates itself, keeps itself safe. And all the while, this egg is absorbing the juices from the inside of the ladybug. After 20 days, this massive pupa emerges from the ladybug. Now that virus cascades and floods into the ladybug's brain, and the ladybug becomes like this zombie, and it straddles the pupa, and for 7 days it keeps guard. And if something touches the ladybug, it'll kick and twitch and guard that little developing wasp. At the end of 7 days, the wasp hatches, emerges, and the ladybug can continue on like nothing happened. It continues to eat aphids, it breeds, it lays eggs, it continues on with its life. So it's an amazing thing that the virus first takes over the body, it keeps the immune system down, and then when the pupa comes out, and for that last 7 days, it cascades into the brain. It actually, the scientists have found that it is related to the poliovirus. Same thing, the poliovirus does affect our nervous system. When we talk about these millions and millions of viruses, so a virus is something that you can have a vaccine against because it mutates. And the thing about viruses is when we have a vaccine, it's for a deadly virus. But to get a really good grip of what's going on with these viruses, so this rice represents viruses. And so the immune system has to protect you against thousands, millions of viruses mutating and coming at you at every direction. When you get a vaccine, a deadly virus is identified, we get the vaccine, and now he is safe from that particular virus. But he still has all these other viruses to ward off. What is helpful to us is that plants, because plants can't go anywhere, plants have phytochemicals. And phytochemicals are something that the plant develops. Back in the 1600s, tulips hit Europe for the first time and caused a wild tulip mania. So famous that Rembrandt painted one called The Beautiful Curse. What happened with the tulips, the broken mosaic virus created these wonderful, gorgeous stipulations and striations of the tulips. What happened then, though, is as the tulip created a new bulb, the bulb got weaker and weaker and weaker until the tulip was dead. Now there's a lot of, in terms of growing tulips, a lot of regulations to prevent the mosaic virus from affecting more tulips. What happens, though, is these phytochemicals in the plants fight off the viruses. And so we can boost our immune system, we can make ourselves stronger by actually taking some of these phytochemicals in our food. Onions, for example, chock full of antiviral phytochemicals. Garlic. So garlic has something called allicin in it, tremendously antiviral. A couple other great things that are antiviral is oil of oregano and olive leaf. So as supplements, they kind of act like viral birth control. So when you have the virus and you have the healthy cell, it literally can't dock. It changes the receptor cell and doesn't allow the virus to dock. Some other things that are great and antiviral is elderberry as a tea, as a supplement. So elderberry has those phytochemicals in it, but it also does some wonderful things for our immune system. It stimulates this chemical messenger in our own immune system. So not only does it act like viral birth control, but it tells our immune system that this virus is here. And so our immune system cascades this chemical through our body and prevents the virus from going cell to cell. Another great, and one of my favorites, is something called mullein. Mullein is antiviral. Mullein is tremendously helpful to our lungs. So it's got some anti-mucus type properties. It strengthens the lung tissue itself, and it's antiviral. It's another viral birth control. But what happens if you get hit? If you get hit with a virus, what can you do? Well, we use an amino acids. So if what we have here is our brick and mortar, our amino acids are like the worker guys. They take the building blocks and repair. So L-lysine is one of the 20 amino acids. It's called an essential amino acid, meaning we don't make it. We must ingest it, and we use it to repair after a viral attack. Now, herpes it tends to show up on the mouth, so this particular product has lysine in a chapstick type thing to help the lips repair. Here's a supplement. But where do we get, if you didn't do a supplement, where do you get lysine? Lysine is very protein intensive. Tuna, salmon, meats, that's where we get our lysine. So having a healthy diet will help you stay healthy. There is so much that we can do to keep ourselves well, to stay well, And I hope that understanding viruses will keep you on that path. This is Susan Moody, and just wishing you health and wellness. Hugs.